They're slow. Like Cuba took forever. They still think communism is around, so they're the lone wolf out there. But Vietnam embraced the whole capitalism and jumped on that real quick, so they're open to it.
Yeah, credit, you see, but the problem is that China doesn't have that time. China is projected to maintain its growth not below the 5% that it is right now. Actually, in order to hold the CCP
Yeah, is
intact,
Jonathan frozen?
yeah, he's frozen.
He's
In order
frozen.
to,
I'm like, how
yeah,
long can he keep that smile for?
that's what I'm saying. He's, he's, he's frozen like,
He was trying to be sneaky, Cindy.
yeah.
I'm
So,
looking at him going, wait, what? He's not
yeah.
blinking there. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sergio.
Yeah, I tried to refresh. I thought it was my page. Then I saw Daphne moving and credit moving. I said, yeah, he frozen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's still alive.
Yeah, we tried to move him, but it's not working. So we
yeah.
come
That's a
on.
good frozen picture.
That's the feeling.
Um,
I just take it from
it,
event to event.
it, like I said earlier before when we started, I mean, I'm giving Trump a pass. I'm giving him a point for at least having that temerity, that gumption to stand against China because China needs to be checked. We can't continue like this, okay? But the problem, credit is this: China does not have that time. They are rattled right now. If you see trying to go to neighboring countries in the South Pacific, what he's trying to do in essence is trying to open up a new line of consumers, people that will buy their goods. United States is about 50% of consumed Chinese imports in about 50% Thai range. So if America stops that, it's going to hurt China. So China now is rattled. Xi is going to run around to try to develop new areas of trade. He may succeed, he may not. But the real problem here is if China's growth is not sustained, is not kept at this 5%, that 5% is a risk, is a risk. If it falls below 5% or even dip lower than that, the danger there is that this CCP may collapse. You may just see the end of CC. You might just see a repeat of what happened in Soviet Union, and everybody knows that, and China knows that. The only thing that is keeping China together is economic prosperity. But with the problem that they have internally with real estate and investment and production, any little changes in the economy is going to affect the CCP and it may just collapse. So that's the danger. They have a national security problem if this thing continues. And I'm done.
That's why they're really pushing this this BRI, this Belt and Road Initiative, which is basically wanting to improve connectivity and cooperation between China and other countries through land and maritime routes. So they're really pushing their infrastructure development with connectivity, their trade facilitation between China and its partners, their economic cooperation. That's why he's like, look, Donald Trump, let's do a deal. The BRI, they have a huge scope, including Africa, Oceanica, and Latin America. For those who don't know, they just bought a space to build a huge port in Peru, um, which is just south of the Panama Canal, and they're going to start with their military ships up and down the west coast, outside of our 3 or whatever miles. Um, and I understand why uh, Donald used it was either KKR or one of these firms to put together a consortium of money to acquire back control of the Panama Canal. So that part does make sense, by the way, for those that part makes a lot of sense. To control the maritime shipping lanes between the Atlantic and the Pacific. Um, and but yeah, the BRI China is really trying to increase their trade routes, and they need, like Sir Jude said, more customers to maintain relevance. So they don't. They're trying to stay out of an agrarian age. And for those who may or may not remember, it was Nixon in '72, I think, '71, '72, who opened up China to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and say, like, you guys are making some of the arguments that I've been thinking of. When I said I think we'll win this thing, these were some of the factors I was thinking of, right? So St. Jude is talking about how
Said you.
Sir Jude, is talking about how the Chinese economy is modeled, and this economic model used to be called the Asian miracle model, right? And so basically, it's predicated on a very high growth rate. And so you can get a whole lot done as long as you're growing really quickly. And it's how countries like China, like Singapore, like Japan, recovered from the literal ashes of World War II, right? And built these incredible powerhouse economies in very short periods of time. And so the struggle with that model is how you transition to a low growth economy. I was told in college by a professor that China will keep growing forever, but she was a communist, so of course she thought that. But anyway, there are different
That's
types
funny.
there are different types of economists out there, and she was the communist variety. So, anyway, we see how Japan has transitioned, right? Japan has an aging population, but they have transitioned. One of the ways they transitioned was they diffused Japanese supply chains. So there's Japanese companies in Brazil, and there's Japanese companies in America. Right here in Ohio, we've got Honda and its entire supply chain and supporting companies. And so while Japan itself may have had limits to how quickly it could grow, as it expanded into new markets, right, they brought their companies, their cultures, and their people to new places and continued growing. Uh, Whereas, and so that was a sort of a natural transition. And China has attempted that to some extent by directly investing with Belt and Road. And creating these enclaves of Chinese people in other countries and Chinese companies in other places. But at the same time, now there is a new timer on this thing, folks. Uh, Japan had decades to achieve this plan. Like, I mean, literally 20, 30, 40 years to achieve this plan, and they did it intentionally and with forethought. China has only had, little bit over a decade total to work on this transition. And now we're sort of putting the screws to them, right, with this trade war. And taking the Panama Canal is yet another hit. So, firstly, their economy is built in a way where it really expects this kind of growth. The GDP has been flat for China since COVID. I do believe that COVID hit China harder than China is admitting. I mean, it certainly hit us hard as hell over here. So, but I think it hit China even worse. I really do. I really think it hit them even worse because the virus was more lethal in the early days, and it started there, right? So that's just some basic logic. But
There's
as
also
but just one last thing and I'll land. Sorry, just the Panama Canal controlling that. Think about like BRICS and all this kind of stuff. Well, how are you going to get Brazil is a huge trading partner of China, tons of food and stuff like that. How are they have to get to China? If we control the Panama Canal, you have to go to that southern passage between Latin America, or sorry, South America and Antarctica, and that stretch of ocean is the most dangerous stretch of ocean on Earth. People, yeah, it is. There are waves driven by the circumpolar winds. There are waves the size of buildings there. I mean, you do not want to be in that water. And I land.
So what I was saying was China, and for those who don't know, in Eritrea, which is borders Sudan and Ethiopia in the Red Sea. Wait, no, going up the canal, the one that goes to the Suez Canal, whatever that road, that ocean water is. They have built a massive port there, and out of Nigeria, Dangote, who's a huge industrialist, has built a huge cement situation there that's going on. So they definitely are expanding into new markets because right there you can jump off into the Middle East. You have all of Africa right there, at least on the eastern side. Kenya, Sudan, which is unfortunately they're going through their number again. Hopefully they don't rank back up. But Eritrea, Ethiopia, and the entire coast on that eastern part of the continent of Africa. So they're a force to be reckoned with. And of course, they put the port there. And of course, what follows the port? The military. So yeah, they're definitely on an expansionist play.
Yeah, but losing American market is going to be a big hit, and it's not replaceable, and they don't have that time to replace it. So, at least if you need to check China, this is the time. If you don't get, they are very weak now. They have the Achilles heel. So, kind of, Trump has my he has my praise on this one. He got them by the balls. I hope he squeezes it and squeezes it nice and tight. Because if you get to ruin China, this is the time. If you leave them now, if they survive this period, America is going to be displaced completely and eternally as the one of the dominating powers. So if you got to take China, this is it. So I'm
So,
with
sir,
Donald Trump on this one. I'm done.
Sir
Oh, I must
Jude,
be. Am I in the twilight zone tonight yet?
No,
so
you're in
so
a you're in a
Am you?
realistic zone.
Oh,
being
okay.
so
I feel
big
like I'm in the twilight zone tonight.
so Cindy, being an American, who I
Yeah.
typically don't agree with this administration, it is incumbent as an American that we control to a great extent our manufacturing play, so we don't become subservient, which I hated NAFTA, if you remember NAFTA,
Yep.
to other entities. So I like the fact of having countries come and bend the knee. I do like that. Now, there's other stuff about him I don't like, but that part I do like, and especially checking China. You're absolutely right, Sir Jude. You gotta
Yes,
check them. You
Cindy,
have to.
what you let me clarify. So if you're in the twilight zone, and make sure that you're seeing the stars clearly.
What
Okay, nothing has changed here. The issue that we had with Trump is he was
needs
approaching
what?
a situation that such a situation that he's supposed to be approaching surgically.
What?
He came out there with a double
I'll be
barrel.
in there in just a second. Okay.
Okay, who is speaking?
Yeah, he's on CH. Go ahead. Let's let him get in real fast. Go ahead, CH. Go ahead. All right.
Clubhouse,
So
go ahead.
go ahead, Sir Jude.
Yeah. So Cindy, the thing is that I mean, everybody is on board. Everybody has always been on board that China needs to be checked, but it's the approach. So, and we know that if you got to check China, you at least got to need your allies. You don't go to war and start shooting yourself on the foot. Okay. So
I
I think, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think it was I was always wondering because I think that China is betting on because the U.S. big companies cannot leave that 1.4 billion market. For example, because I just recent data, for example, like a GM company, Ford company, especially for GM, and half of their revenue they come from China, and if they lose that market, they probably the stock market, the volumes and the values maybe go shrink half of the value, and there's no growth. So I think that they're betting on that, and also China is dumping their treasuries and they're trying to purchase as much as gold. This is very concerning to me. It sounds like it's like what Putin is preparing for a war. Um, let's say, what if China just to take advantage of like this time and to get into Taiwan? Are we ready for that? I don't think so. We don't have money for that. We don't even have money for Ukraine. So it looks like, we are not fully prepared. Looks like China is preparing something.
I agree with you, Baba. So there are a couple simultaneous efforts going on right now with the Belt and Road Initiative. They're utilizing that. They're also utilizing the String of Pearls, which a lot of people don't really talk about, with India. So basically, like taking over the waterways and then charging fees for passing ships, gaining extra income for that. Talked about the sale of the Panama Canal and how it was presumably occupied by China. China is making a number of moves that will set them up financially to gain residuals because with the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa, all these African countries that took loans from China are paying them back at a 4% interest rate, which is pretty predatory. So, with those efforts that are going on right now, in addition to BRICS, which also plays into this, the plan is for those five initial countries, Saudi Arabia, India, China, Russia, all the members of BRICS, to come together in a globalization effort and then try to remove the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, and then I don't know if they're going to start their own currency or just have a conglomerate, but they're moving away from the system that we currently use, which is SWIFT, and they're starting their own system, which is something they talked about the last summit. So it is very trying. And then also you see all these big time dictators making moves on new land. You see Russia going in and taking over Crimea, taking over Ukraine, trying to take over parts of the Donbass region. And then also you see China having their eyes on Taiwan. And then also you see Trump trying to take over, talking about taking over Greenland as well as Canada as well. So these are all efforts that are working simultaneously for a globalization effort and a shift that we're going to see very soon.
Exactly, and I totally agree with you. And also, what they're happening is under the radar. I don't think the U.S., especially Americans, take too much care about what China is doing, and we don't know what they're doing. And I think you're right. So they try to avoid the SWIFT. They try to attack the U.S. Dollar. This is the final war because for China right now. Because they have some trade for oil. They just use the RMB, their yuan, and against their goods. So they don't use U.S. dollar, and it's happening right now in
Yeah,
So I'm a
Africa
GM
and
vendor. So I'm a GM vendor.
in yeah
Fifty
in
fifty
Midwest.
percent
yeah,
of GM
it's true.
sales does not come from China. Only
Yeah,
34%, and it's decreasing. It's not 50%.
Yeah, but all those moves are all reactionary, guys. Do you understand? None of these countries has what America has, which is stability. And that's what makes the dollar strong. You could have whatever union and alliances, economic alliances that you have. These are just instantaneous. They are all reactionaries. 10 years from now, you're not going to see all these major players. 10 years from now, you're not going to see Putin, you're not going to see Chai, you're not going to see all these people that are on the scene right now. They are going to be gone. America is still going to be the strongest surviving democracy. That's what makes America strong. That's why America is not concerned about all this. Yes, it's a concern. Yes, it's something to pay attention to. But in the long run, the only advantage America has over them, the military power, the stability in government, and the longevity. That's what makes your country strong. That's what makes your country influential. Do you understand? Putin is going to be gone. She is going to be gone. But United States of America is going to be there. Okay, American military is going to be there. American ideology is going to be there. American democracy is going to be there, provided that Trump doesn't, he survives Trump. So those are things that is going to make America strong. Those are the advantage that America has over all these people. China has a very big problem. I know it's going to try as much as it can in order to cushion it, but if the growth is not sustained, CCP is going to collapse. That's why China is not going to make any move militarily. They cannot afford any war at all. They cannot afford to go into Taiwan by force. Taiwan is not even
Facts.
easy. But Taiwan is not even easy. You guys are looking at Taiwan. Taiwan has last 50 years of defensive action. Majority
That's
of
right.
Taiwanese infrastructure are underground. Do you understand? If you drop a bomb in Taiwan, everybody is going underground. You people don't know. I mean, I'm giving you a little bit of security information here. Taiwan is not easy to conquer. Yes, you could land your ships out there, but Taiwanese can live underground for many years without surfacing. A lot of people doesn't know that. So if it's easy, China would have gone in there. It's not easy. They have this mechanism where government will go and people will go underground and the surface will be poisoned. You guys don't know that. So, I mean, China can't go to Taiwan. They can't afford any war at this point. It's going to be completely
You just
detrimental
fucking came up.
to them. All
Yeah,
right. So the only chance that they have right now is to try to develop other areas of trade and hopefully come on board and play by the rules like everybody else is playing by the rules, which invariably is going to hurt them too. So they are pushed between the rock and the high place. But let's see how it's going to play out. Like Donald Trump always say, let's see how it goes. I'm done.
yeah, but you also want to take into account what China's. I hope everything you said is correct. I hope You are 100% correct. But the issue is the president we have right now. You said if we survive Trump, that's a big problem because his isolationist moves that he's making financially is putting us at a disadvantage. So also China is utilizing, I think, what we call the cabbage method, where there are islands being created on the outside and the outskirts of Taiwan, which are inhabited by Taiwanese military forces. And then what China's doing is surrounding those islands. And then when they surround them, they cut off and blockade any materials, raw materials, or food from getting to those islands, those military installations. And then what they do is they abandon that island, and then China takes it over one by one, which is a part of the war in the South China Sea, as well as taxing, like I said earlier, about taxing any ships that are coming by an exorbitant rate. And that's what I think Trump talked about, that he hates that, and he had a problem with China on his first term. And as the war in the South China Sea continues.
A point of correction there. I don't even think that Trump is using an isolationist method. I don't think that Trump is an isolationist. I think he's a limitationist. He wants to limit American involvement in some certain area, which kind of makes sense. Okay, a lot of American foreign policy advisors have been calling for that since the end of containment, since the end of the Soviet Union. America cannot continue, but that's a different story. I just want to make that. I don't want to go into tangential of foreign policies and foreign policy analysis and all whatnot. But yeah, I kind of think that Trump is a limitationist.
Yeah, I disagree. I think he's an isolationist because, I mean, you put tariffs on every country worldwide and then remove them, one. And then two, you're trying to pull us out of NATO, saying NATO's obsolete. I mean, every move that he makes is to the
I think
benefit of
those were
Vladimir
just
Putin and Russia as well.
pulling out a NATO thing. May have been trying to. I don't know if that's trying to get closer to Putin. Um, don't know if that's going to happen. I don't see him as an isolationist. I think this tariff thing is to drag people to have accurate, free, and fair trade. That's how I'm kind of looking at Trump doing what he's doing, which is not a bad thing, actually.
Well,
When you're being taken advantage of, you actually have to have a way to do it. And by yelling at it, it's not necessarily going to happen. So if you turn up the heat, here we go. If the financial markets and the American public and their 401ks have to take a hit, um, I think he's playing a little longer game.
I think this idea of, we're not, nothing's fair, and that, well, the trade and everything we had in place was not fair prior to Trump's arrival in office. I think that is not correct. One, if we take a look at starting a fight with Canada, that where an isolationist, basically, you're moving us away. Everything that he's doing is to the benefit of Russia and Vladimir Putin, and then he's pissing off Mexico. He's pissing off Canada. He's raising prices on the prices of goods with his tariffs. Everything that he's doing is making us look, is not making us look like the America we were prior. Our EU friends are now spending more money on military defense, and they're not happy with it. Making comments like NATO's obsolete, and then passing classified documents to Sergei Kislyak in the Oval Office in Russia. Our friends don't like that, right? So he's making us look bad, and that's a big problem to every country, as well as you put a tariff on a country that's only inhabited by penguins. Come on, I mean, we're making excuses, but we have to call a spade a spade.
Well, that's how you look at it, okay? But there's a different school of thoughts there. Somebody else will argue and said, United States of America was built under the framework of neutrality. That America was built under the foundation of isolation. Okay, and that was the main conception of American grand policy, beginning from 1789 up till now. The only reason America got into the world affairs and affairs of Europe, everybody argues against American involvement in international policy. But Hamilton did that in Federalist Papers. John Quincy Adams, all the American presidents have maintained that America should stay out of the world, out of the affairs of the world. The only reason America got into the world politics is when, the First World War, the Lusitania was bombed, and the Second World War, Pearl Harbor was attacked. And after the end of the Second World War, America got into the business of trying to help Europe rebuild. There you have the Marshall Plan. And that Marshall Plan then developed into containing the Soviet Union that wanted to expand and become a threat in West Germany, in Japan, in India, in China, and elsewhere. Right? So that's where you have the containment. And because of that containment, there you have NATO. You see how all those things are progressing? So when Donald Trump is calling to tell you that NATO has a serious issues, he's not completely wrong, right? He's not completely wrong. Okay, when you look at it in the progression of American history and American grand strategy and American foreign policies approach, some of the things that he's saying is not completely wrong, but it's just the approach. It's something that you have to balance. It's something that you have already in this. You have to kind of not break it, but find a way, to get what you want without making enemy in the process. So, but I'm not here to give you lectures on international politics or on foreign American foreign policy. But when you understand some of the languages and some of the position that he has taken, you could see some relevance to American foundational principles, to American future plans and goals when it comes to national interest. And I land with there.
The not completely wrong part. I just don't. You cannot completely shit on Zelensky in the Oval Office, right, when his country was invaded, and side with Vladimir Putin on multiple different occasions, when they were the aggressor. And then you turn around and you shit on our allies in NATO. Then you turn around and, you're just, the policies that you're implementing are hurting the American people, which is the same policies you said that you would implement in order to reduce the price of eggs, which is why these people voted for you in the first place. Now, what happens is overseas, and with the tariffs and these things being removed for 90 days, what happens is you have a lot of volatility in the market. With the volatility in the market that we're seeing right now, we're seeing a lot of countries lose faith in the United States. And that is an ongoing narrative that you're seeing from all news stations, whether you're more conservative or you're more liberal. And that is a big problem, right? Because what happens is the uncertainty will affect us all long term. And that's a big, big problem in terms of investments that are set to be made in the United States, which will be pulled out due to the volatility.
We
Can
got
I?
somebody else. I'm
Okay,
giving
folks.
somebody.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're talking about, I think it's sort of interesting that we don't have any of the MAGA folks in here because this is the most I've heard of us saying, "Yeah, we're going to beat China." I'm like, and this is how we're going to do it, right? And it's like, man, if the MAGA folks were in here, they'd feel like, what is going on right now? I mean, this is very outside the norm from their perspective, right? From perhaps a more moderate or left perspective, it's not necessarily that we didn't think that China was perhaps the problem. We just thought perhaps the best way to address that was not by slapping all our allies in the face first. But here we are, and I do think there is going to be pain, though, and I do want to underscore that again here. Uh, there's going to be a lot of disruptions, and it's already happening to drop shipping businesses, to resellers. Uh, the Forbes, I think it was that Forbes that I just read. I literally just read an article that basically said America is going to become one giant yard sale, right? Because we're not going to be able to get our cheap, uh, our cheap clothes from China, right? So there's going to be a lot more secondhand clothing sales, stuff like that, right? And maybe there are, right? Maybe these things do happen, but at the end of the day, right? We've got to protect American interests, and we've got to protect our economic future. and America has contributed massively to global development. We've shut down USAID. I ranted a lot about how that was a mistake, in my opinion, but we have invested significant money for decades and decades, long before Belt and Road was a twinkle in China's eye. We were investing in foreign countries, and so that's where we're at here, folks. We're in an economy of mostly our own making, and so that gives us a little bit of a home court advantage here.
Yeah, Scott, to your point, the problem is the way that Trump is handling it. Okay, there is so much incoherency in his foreign policy approach. If you do remember, last week and prior to that, and even months, I'm making this argument that this man, his foreign policy is very incoherent. If you're trying to build up industry, bring industries back, you want to compete with China, for example, why would you want to deplete your source of cheap labor? It's just like you're going to war and you're shooting yourself on the foot. It doesn't make any sense. So today he reverses himself, right? And now he says, I'm not going to deport illegal immigrants that are working in the farms and in agriculture and elsewhere,
That
right?
was funny.
You see, so he kind of reverses himself. So you kind of see that this man doesn't have a thought out plan on what is going on. And that is the problem. So going after China is a necessity. Anybody will tell you that. Even Europeans, our European allies will tell you, let's go. They are ready. If there is a leader that has a concise, practical, realistic plan that will achieve it. But as a part of a grand strategy, you really need to do your homework first. Okay? You need to have your people behind you. Trump did not sell it to the nation. That's why you're having polarity in his approach in American polity. There is polarity. He hasn't convinced America. The messaging was poor. He comes up like a bravado, even though he's going to the right, he might be going to the right direction, but the way he's coming out of it, like he's a king, like this is his own concept, like he knows what he's doing, like he's going to be his way or the highway. That is not how you formulate a foreign policy. That is not how you convince your constituents to come along with you. He really need to identify and define China concretely as a threat, as an economic threat, as a national security threat. People have to see it just the same way Soviet Union was identified and defined as a threat that made the containment from 1949 to 1989 and 1991, for example, to be very successful. He didn't define it like that. He need to define China as an economic threat and to the threat of national security of America. Everybody will be on board, and then that's how his approach will be sustainable. That's why people will be convinced, people will support him, and then we will have a reason, a national patriotic reason to withstand whatever fallback, whatever pain that is going to come out of it. But the way he's selling it, that's why he's having a problem. But do we want China to be challenged? Absolutely not. Absolutely yes. That is a necessity, and along with that.
We basically don't have enough engineers to compete with China because if you check China every year, they have a millions like graduates in STEM, like a major in STEM, like a math engineers and even like a professional school. They just get a training, get on the job, go to the manufacturers. But in the States, no. Even in the Silicon Valley, we don't have enough engineers. We have to provide a H-1B, and we have to source Indians, and then we have to dispatch jobs to Indians. So this
Yeah.
is very concerning because because if you really want to have like economic compact, you have to compete in manufacturers technologies. This is the key. Of course, the financial is the other game, but looks like we're not fully ready for that.
That's part of the homework that I was referring to. For you to do that homework, right, is a kind of a grand strategy. Grand strategy is look at everything in total, right? The part of the homework is You have to decide which industry that you're bringing back. You have to identify who is going to affect. You will bring these industries closer and you will talk to them. This is where we are heading. Well, how can we help you to do this? This is what we are targeting. Okay, a part of that grand strategy is bringing the schools involved, education. This is what we are targeting. This is what we are trying to develop. STEM area. How do we do this? You encourage that. It's a part of a grand plan. It's not something that you come up and you say tariff, yeah, and you expect it. It doesn't really doesn't work like that. That's why the grand strategy, the strategy, it's not even a grand strategy at this point. It's kind of what I would call a orientational policy. Okay, it's not even a grand strategy because you haven't got it all thought out. So you got to lay these foundations for this. You want to bring back certain industries. You find out what you need. Of course, America is lacking behind when it comes to tool workers and the technical skills workers that China has, even in volume. You have to make plans to develop this or attract people in that area from anywhere that you can. You have to encourage your institutions to develop that, fund that, to let it happen. You have to give the companies incentives for them to bring back these companies and give them the tax credit or whatever that they needed for them to start all over. It's a part of the whole grand plan. He hasn't done that, and that's why his policy is incoherent. I'm done.
I I agree with you. But I think that before we do have like a very, how do you say, long-term strategy, which is actually implemented by the deep state. We have our allies, and then we have a Five Eye like allies and neighbors, good neighbors, and this is all the networks we used to build. But looks like right now we try to change the order of the world, but we choose too many enemies, right? So this is not a good start, and this is not a wise move.
I do think that this weekend that that meeting with Iran. So Trump will be meeting with Iran this weekend, and a sign of strength will be shown over the next few days or weeks to come with Iran. And I think at that point the world will be shocked in terms of America is more of a show strength through force, because when you look at the defense budget for this year, it's $1 trillion. Never had we had a defense budget that big. So you're like, okay, something is not adding up. And then you have Israel coming for a meeting, and I'm 100% sure that wasn't a tariff meeting that he was having. So then at the end of the day, I do think that Trump is, as a lot of people are trying to say, he's predictable. No, he's not. He's moving off of his emotions and his ego. So whatever he's going to say tomorrow, I think some his advisors is advising him to do one of two things, which I have said earlier, is either to back off of some of the taxes on the rest of the world and deal with China, because he do have a big meeting on Saturday with Iran. And I think and I foresee that that meeting is going to escalate, and he will shock the world with his actions. And that's where majority of the world will say, okay, this man is really crazy, and fall back in line. And I yield there.
So are you thinking that there's going to be a hit on Iran, like some kind of thing on there before?
Because when you look at what happened over the last 2 weeks, um, and we were discussing this just about 2 nights ago, myself and Sir Jude and two other gentlemen. And with that, you have some players who from Iran that actually live here in the U.S., have homes here in D.C., Israel, yet Netanyahu was here in the U.S. to see Trump, and that same gentleman was at a meeting with Trump and Netanyahu because remember they had a meeting set and they had to move their meeting place to a undisclosed location. And word got out that they actually met these three guys sitting down talking, which is Trump, Netanyahu, and this third person. So then they announced that a meeting is going to be held with Iran on Saturday with Trump. And the person also stated that Iran is going to be given a deal they cannot say no to. Because in the past, they've been saying no to all the deals. This is just my take on it, because I know for a fact Netanyahu didn't come to America to talk about no tariff, because Netanyahu, Israel and America is in surplus. There's no deficits there. It's all surplus.
So Jonathan, this is Hulk here. So the concerns around the meeting with Iran is to ensure that if they do possess nuclear weapons, right?
Okay.
They we want to ensure that they're not giving it to the Hezbollahs or Yemen or Lebanon or all these other countries where they're using it for a different purpose or for
Okay.
retaliation, right?
Understood.
So from that point of view, we want to make a deal
Mm-hmm.
stating that if you do have it or if you don't have it, it's good. If you do have it, then like how do we govern it, or they shouldn't have it? If can we decide as a global power that who should have and who should not have, or like the concern is more about how this is going to turn negative or not in favor to America? It's like what's the concern, or are we trying to address here?
It's not really a concern. It's more of the actions of a unpredictable man that is talking to someone whose family was the leader of Iran and got put out. And
Yeah.
that person was in the U.S. And if that person, Iran and Israel don't talk, and if that person was parents was the ruler of Iran, and then this son is now talking to Israel along with Trump, then something is up. Do you not think that way?
I mean, I think our intel tells like how some of the areas that we have had war in the Middle East, where they have backed all these local terror, like I don't want to say terrorist groups, local retaliation groups, right? I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so now the real concern is if they do possess, what are we going to do about it?
Okay.
And and they cannot ship these to these organizations, and then that's going to be a disaster that we have to deal with, right?
True.
Especially given the fact that Israel is our allies, right?
Look at the Houthis. Houthis was a problem. Trump started presidency 2021, January 21, and Trump responded to one incident and totally wiped them off the map. That's what they're claiming. And then all of a sudden, Iran said, "Look, let's talk." I'm trying to make sense of it, but the only thing is telling me that something else is up. And it's just in the same week, we're flying bombers for round trip for this Saturday. And instead of hiding the bombers, they're flying them broad daylight.
Yeah, and I had talked about that. What was that, last week or week before? Was in my Dateline, right? That
Yeah,
stealth bombers are flying over there. Yeah, and so
broad daylight. And
there's
here's it.
now six stealth bombers over there,
Yeah,
and
six of them.
there's an entire group of mid-air refueling stuff. We keep those in the air for a long time.
Yeah,
The
and
son of the Shah of Iran, who's been living in exile. If you guys didn't know, the Shah of Iran, that was the monarch that ruled Iran before the Islamic revolution, folks. So Ayatollah Khomeini and all these Islamists that now are running Iran and have been for many decades. Before that, there was a monarch there, Shah, who was uh, friendlier, right, with the United States certainly than
Yeah,
the people
absolutely.
now that are there that chant "Death to America." And so he was actually involved in this. The Shah of Iran, who is many years younger than Trump, he's a spring chicken, but in political terms, he's only in his early 60s, and this is a guy who has spent decades criticizing Iran. That's basically his full time job, is to be opposition to the Ayatollah and the ruling party of Iran currently, who usurped his family's throne. So, I think that that certainly will be a factor in our talks with Iran, and I would like to share a quick story here, which is that Iran, strangely enough, let me see if I can find it here. Um, I saw that Iran was trying to offer deals to us ahead of this. Let me see if I can find it. It
That's
wasn't.
correct.
Here it is. Commodities. Iran offers investment fig leaf as Trump threatens action over nuclear deal. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has welcomed U.S. investors into his country. So that's a very interesting action, and this was just taken, folks. This was just taken hours ago. I mean, this is breaking news here. So welcomed investors into his country, that his country is not pursuing nuclear weapons. The day after the Trump administration sanctioned five entities, it says, I met with the supreme leader, Ali Al Khamenei, several times each week. He has no objection to American investors in the country. Let them come and invest. But we oppose plotting, regime change efforts, and destructive policies. So, yeah, I mean, clearly Iran's backed up against the wall here, folks.
Yeah, do you think that Iran is going to abandon its nuclear ambition? Are you under the illusion that they're going to do that?
It's, so
Yeah,
is
with the current administration, they're not, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, even the people who are living in Iran don't like him. They changed the whole religion. They changed the country name from Iran to Republic Islamic of Iran. They changed the flag. So people who identify as Persians are don't even identify themselves as Muslims anymore, right? So there's a lot of problem with the current government that's actually taken over the country. Half of the people who move out of the country to the United States and the rest of the world are actually doing that and seeking asylums to all different countries simply because they just don't hate, they just don't like the government, right? So
The-
anything that the government does is not a true representation of what the citizens want. Like now, how, what can, how can the United States actually maneuver their their policies and everything that could actually not impact the people, but actually the government. I mean, it's a very hard thing to do. Um, but I really feel sad for the residents of the country. I mean, it's. I've met a lot of amazing people. My wife is an Iranian, so I closely understand. My in-laws right now live in Tehran, so there's a lot of problem there, and I can't fly there. So
So the question is, what is Trump and Netanyahu going to get out of this? They made the problem the way that it is. What are they going to get out of this? It's a lose-lose situation. I mean, taking the bombers in the Middle East, and that's practically just a demonstration, a show of force. That's basically what it is, right?
and
That's a force projection.
and I think that's where they're looking at is either you take the deal or no. It's like no deal or no deal. So
yes,
if you say yes, great, we're going to come in. If you say no, great, we're going to come in. Um,
Come in and do what? What are you going to come in and do?
bomb and kill. That's what they're
that
gonna do.
Yeah, but
that's
Yeah.
That's yet to be seen. This is the thing. I'm no conspiracist. It's just a close friend of mine who is also a GOPer, and he's showing me the moves, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "No, this is real stuff. This is real stuff happening in real time.
Man,
Who's
it's
who's getting bombed?
It's not nobody getting bombed. It's just that it's just that the Trump administration is moving in real time to have a conversation with Iran.
okay. So this is my thing, okay? You want to move to have a conversation with them.
Hmm.
You were having a conversation with them and you truncated it out of a whim. Maybe you have an agreement that is going on that the whole world supported because Obama was the one that came up with the agreement. You stood for everything that Obama has achieved. You allow yourself to be talked out of it and you dismantled the agreement, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was working with Atomic Energy Agency monitoring Iran, trying to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. You dismantled it. That was years ago. For over 5, 6, 7 years now, the people are there unmonitored, unrestricted. They have developed the act and the craft to convert uranium to a weapon grade. Now you want to talk with them. They have 95% of their population, even though I give it to you that majority of the people in the country do not like the government. And the reason why they do not like the government is because the government is a problem why they are sanctioned. The sanction is hurting everybody. I don't care who you put there. You could put Mother Teresa as the president. If the people are hungry, they're not going to like her. I don't care who you are. So the people are hungry, they're not going to like the government that brought them that hunger. It's as simple as that. Okay? So now you have 95% of the country wants nuclear weapon because they know what you have done. They know the people that gave up their nuclear ambition, what happened to their leaders and what happened to their country. So what are you? You're going now. You want to bring them in to talk about trade. You could talk about trade all you want, but they're telling you, okay, we're not going to give up our nuclear weapon. So at the end of the day, what have you gotten? Okay, you just become like a crybaby that destroy your toys, and now you're having your parents to glue them together with a glue. Why did you destroy it in the first place? America has lost this battle. Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon, whether you like it or not. The whole world has to start thinking in that area. Iran will get the bomb if they
And
haven't
they,
gotten it already.
and they will use it.
Well,
And,
I don't know about using it. No, no, no. That's another thing. That's another. That's another. Or
Sir, Sir
miss.
Jew, they will use that bomb.
No, no, no,
They
no, 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 no. Hold on, bro. Everybody and their mother knows. Okay, the reason that the bomb is necessary is for deterrent. It's just as simple as that. Anybody knows that if you fire the bomb, you only have opportunity to fire once. You are done. You will be wiped out of the face of the earth. It's a suicide that you might as well just take a gun and kill yourself. Okay, it's a mutual assured destruction. It's for it's asymmetrical deterrence, so that people doesn't attack you. That's what people wants to get the bomb. Nobody wants to be the first to fire the bomb. United States does not even have a policy to use the bomb to fire to be the first one to use nuclear energy. That's not American foreign policy. American foreign policy is for defense and retaliate. Okay, it's not to use
but,
it first.
but
No
who is
country
the
has
only
that. Yeah, go
the
ahead.
okay,
nation to
okay,
drop?
Jude,
Aren't we the nation to
Yes.
drop the atomic bomb?
Sir
Say that
Jude,
again.
Aren't we the only nation to drop the atomic bomb on another?
Yeah, yes, you are the first nation to drop it in, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yes, so by then the world have learned.
Sir
Okay,
Jude,
and then America was the unipolar. I mean, was unipolar. But now that America has learned. America has known that they are not the only one that have that capability. You can't use it. It's just for deterrent because of mutual assured destruction. Okay, nobody wants to die, bro.
I mean,
You
you had
understand?
this conversation. Me and you had this conversation. But please be reminded. Let me remind you. We do have someone as the leader of the world, who, as we looked around, and we are currently looking around, who has dropped a nuclear bomb on the whole entire world economic system. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're talking about Trump and the tariff.
No, it's not the same, and it's
It's not the
not.
same.
Yeah, that's not a
Yeah,
good
You,
comparison.
I mean, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but this is something that he did purposely across the world, regardless
Okay,
of
so
if
I
he
mean,
knew.
Yeah, but but nuclear, we're talking about like
This is
casualties
this is
of
nuclear. What we're
millions.
looking at.
So, well, we're not talking about casualties in the same way. So that's
Well,
not even a
no.
comparison.
I'm just showing you the reference of somebody who does not even pay, because this is the thing. If nobody of reasoning, good reasoning that spoke to him last night or night before last night, he wouldn't have backed off, and
yeah,
we
but
would.
this one is different, though. This one is different. When you're talking
Okay.
about nuclear weapon,
Okay.
you're talking about war. The president does not have the authority to declare war. You're going to need a congressional action on that one. So that one puts you in a different situation. The president can. The only time that the president can use, like I told you, American policy when it comes to nuclear engagement is for
Hmm.
retaliatory purposes.
Hmm.
America cannot be the one that will use it. But if you fired
Okay.
it to America, America can retaliate and wipe you out.
Okay. And I'm watching Mr. or President that has been using a lot of tactic, and he has been getting away with it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but he cannot declare
Okay.
war. He
He,
cannot
this
declare
is not a
war.
war.
Is a war
This.
to use a nuclear weapon? It has to be a state of
Okay.
war.
All
You
right.
can't use it preemptively.
Okay. Well, let's see how it turns on Saturday. How the conversation goes on Saturday.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say he cannot declare war. Like now, I disagree with you, Sir Drew,
No,
because
he can't
man,
declare war. What he can
listen,
do,
listen, listen, listen,
yeah,
listen,
go
listen.
ahead.
This man has the military in a way that other presidents haven't really seeked to have the military. So we don't know what he's capable of until he does it. That's just the bottom line when it
And
comes
that's
to
what I'm
Trump.
saying. We have, and this is what we are witnessing across the economy today. This is like a nuclear bomb drop across the economy. That even if the advisors didn't stop him and say, "Hey, you need to stop," our debt is due. What is it, like June or July, or debt is due, and if it's not paid, we'll be in default. So then that's why they say, "Hey, no, you got to stop. You got to
The, re-
you got to
Yeah,
backtrack
why
here."
do you think
no,
he's firing military generals and
the,
stuff? Like,
the
he's
reason
putting everybody in place that'll listen to whatever he wants to do. So I
the
would
reason
not
I'm
say he
telling you,
doesn't have the power to start a war like that. That
the,
sounds crazy.
dude, the reason I'm telling you this, though,
Hmm.
okay, because at least I know a little bit about how the government
Correct.
engages when it comes to at least
Myself.
military. There is a policy. There is a stages of escalation. Okay, it's
Hmm.
American policy,
Correct.
and that policy has been on the books since 1951, developed
Correct.
by Kennan.
Oh, we
Okay,
believe Trump cares about policy now. Really?
well, there is a way the United States engage in when it
Policy?
comes to war. Walk. Okay,
Okay.
there is a stages of escalation from conventional weapon to escalation. How you escalate until it gets to nuclear weapon. You don't just jump to nuclear weapon. It does not work
Well,
like that.
I'm not saying they're going to jump straight to nuclear weapon, but it's at
No.
the end of the day, it's uh, I. For instance, when you look at what he did to the Houthis, it is he just, from what I understood, was take out every last one of them.
Yeah, because that's a response. There's a kinetic, yeah, I mean, there's a kinetic action, and that goes in line of that escalation. Okay, the people
Okay.
attack
All right.
you, the president can attack back to protect the troops. Okay,
Okay.
that's a defensive action. You understand? Okay. So that is not a preempt. America can also attack if they feel that these people are gearing up in order to attack America and put American lives at risk. That could be a preemptive action. And there is a law on that, that allowed the president to do that without congressional first getting a congressional approval. There are different elements. It has to be imminent. Okay, it has to be decisive. It has to be
Yeah,
overwhelming.
when you say it
And
has to be though, it's like I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But when you start talking about policy and law, you're forgetting who you're talking about.
my brother, before Trump would do anything, when it comes to kinetic action, okay, number one, lawyers has to be involved. Even the generals that are on the ship that would deliver those missiles have to select the target. Lawyers has to be involved. Proportionality have to be determined. The kind of
Yeah,
weapon,
that
the kind
has to
of
be
damage.
is where the
All of
only
those
thing I
things has to be
disagree with.
discussed.
That's the only thing I disagree with. When you say has to be, has to be, has to be, has to be.
Ah,
We have seen this man circumvent everything.
no, when it
he's
comes to
Come
right.
military.
on,
Mr. Sir
bro. But
Jude
I
is
mean,
right.
but God, because it doesn't make sense to keep going back and forth on
When
that.
it
Like I
comes
have
to
my
military
yeah.
actions like that, if
Sir Jude is
commanders,
right.
let
He's
me
right.
explain to you. When it
He's
comes
right.
to military actions like that, commanders has the obligation to refuse any action that is illegal
Okay.
because their neck is on the line. Okay,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
based
but the
on
people
you,
that he put in place are not going to consider it illegal. That's why he put his own people in place.
my
What are you
brother.
missing here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sir Jude, I think you're kind of thinking that Trump is playing by the rule book on this. Donald Trump he's in a different stratosphere of his own. He's operating on a different playbook. He's
You
not
know,
operating on normal rules. Even though what you're saying is correct, Sir Jude, but we're dealing with somebody who is not operating within the rules. So you can't apply rules to somebody who does not believe in them.
yeah.
And at this point in time, the Congress is weak. They look very weak, and
It's
the
not
executive is the stronger of the three branches of government right now, and
it's
he is
not
utilizing that power.
Mr. Carlos, it's not Congress's week. Congress is Republican House, Republican Senate. So it's not that they're weak. They're in control. That's
Uh,
not weak.
well, hold on.
So
What
things
we're
are going
talking
through the
about the Republican
Congress,
Party
right?
controlling
So
both
what kind
houses.
of playbook are we talking about here?
They're not moving to stop anything that he's doing. So as far
Correct.
as if you want to put a check on the president, the Congress at its point right now is weak because they are not a check on the president.
I just want you guys to have a little faith
Mhm.
on American institution.
We have faith. I mean, we have faith in the institution. There's no doubt. I mean, we don't want to see America fail. But at the end of the day, is who we have and the things that you're hearing, and we just hear reporting on the things that we're hearing. It's just like, for instance, they claim that they're not going to cut Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, but then they just voted on it last night, right? And it
Yeah,
passed.
those ones I do understand, but that's not what we're talking about. When we're talking about military action and kinetic engagement, that's a completely different animals.
Okay.
And Trump himself
Okay.
knows that even though he's the commander in chief, that's
Okay.
where he has to tread very, very cautiously. Okay, and that is one place you can get easy challenge, even from people on his own party. The
We have
war
a
is
Supreme Court ruling that says anything he does is not illegal. Come on,
no,
bro.
is that's not what the Supreme Court
It
says.
basically says that. I mean, we could get into particulars, but that's basically what it means.
No, no, that's not what the Supreme Court says. It's not everything that he has to also.
While he's president,
In the
if it's,
scope, in the
if it's an
scope of
action
his,
that he's done
in the scope
while
of his
he's
work.
president, then yeah, it cannot be deemed.
No,
Unlawful.
he cannot violate the Constitution even in the line of his duty. There are some certain he can still commit a crime.
Correct. He can
So
still commit a crime.
yeah,
But
he
if
can
it
still he can still commit a crime and still be liable for it. He's still impeachable. I know that's not what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court didn't really say too much. It's just that the parameters and the duties and the powers of the president has never been defined. According to the American Constitution, the only powers that were defined was the legislative power, the congressional power. The powers of the president was left undefined. All the Constitution gave him was the commander in chief of the U.S. Army, because at the time the Constitution was written, there was no, you didn't have any army. You understand? You didn't even have navy. You didn't have some of these infrastructures and institutions that we have now. So the presidential role was not defined. So what the Supreme Court did was kind of, gave him the parameters that we know that he had already. Okay, without Trump can push it. There is no doubt about it, but he cannot violate the Constitution. There are some certain things he cannot do. Okay,
Correct.
he can't just come to your house now and grab you and put you in jail, right?
Which
He
he's
will want
currently
to do
doing.
that. But the Supreme Court just told him, even the guy that he sent to El Salvador, you got to bring him back. Okay, so there are
Hey,
some certain
you
things
gonna
they
bring them
cannot
back?
do.
No, 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 no. Let me correct that. The Supreme Court says you have to show steps that you are attempting to bring him back.
So
That's what the Supreme.
what does that ultimately mean?
So if he put a bunch of steps and says I tried to bring him back, it ends right there.
No. If so, you're telling me the whole point there is that the Supreme Court. You have to understand the language how they tread. It's two separate of powers. He makes a decision and said, "This is a decision that I made." Yeah, you have the right to make the decision, but when that decision violates the constitutional right to due process, you have to
Correct.
show that you're respecting due process. So the
Correct.
whole objective is to bring this guy back.
Yeah, but Sir Jude,
I, the
That's the
decision
whole
is
objective.
who's going
Go
to
ahead.
enforce what the Supreme Court says? They're basically making a request to the executive branch, but they have no enforcement powers.
What do you mean they have no
the Supreme
enforcement power?
the
They have
Supreme
no.
Court ruling basically says he's immune. It says in the idea of sitting or former president might be immune from prosecution for actions taken while in office.
I
That would
mean,
include overthrowing the government.
if he tells the Supreme
Apparently,
Court
because
tomorrow,
that's
I'm, I
go
mean, if he
ahead.
tells the Supreme Court tomorrow, Sir Jude, that I'm not going to abide by anything you just said in relation to this particular individual, what recourse do they have? The only recourse they have is they have to hope that the Congress decides to impeach him, because Supreme Court has no formal authority as far as like to enforce whatever they say.
If
They don't
it's
have an enforcement arm.
yeah, if it does that, okay, that means that he has violated the Constitution and he has violated his oath of office.
Correct.
Do you understand? And that means he's now unfit to be the president.
And who determines if he's unfit?
Well,
His cabinet
let's
has to be the one who.
again, again, again. Remember, you have a balance in the politics, right?
Correct.
If he
There is
determines
no
to
balance.
be, if he determines to be unfit to be president, then he becomes a lame dunk.
He's already a lame
Whatever,
duck.
whatever law that he puts, whatever executive order that he puts, is null and void.
No, no, that's not how that works.
Ah,
So
Voting
no.
needs
So
to get these
when
things
you when
legislation done. He
when
can
you go
still
into
get things done because he still controls both chamber, both houses of government, and
yes,
they can
and
still pass laws.
my,
That doesn't mean that the laws that he signed become
my,
null and void.
my brother, if the guy, I don't even know why we're having this.
Sir
Why
Jude,
we're having
Sir
this.
Jude, what I'm saying is, if he defies the Supreme Court order, the Supreme Court has no enforcement arm. They have to hope that either his cabinet says he's unfit and throw him out, or they have to hope that the Congress brings him up on the charges and impeach him and try him in the
Fact,
Senate. They have
fact.
to hope that. Now, we know that nothing's going to happen in the Congress because guess what? He's got both houses of Congress and they listen to him. His cabinet is people that are loyal to him. There is
My,
going to be no recourse.
my brother, the
Fact.
the the
So okay,
courts.
I
Hold on.
think I
The
think
courts.
we're talking more about how to throw him out of the office than actually understand what he's trying to accomplish. I think that would be more productive because now
Man,
we're
why you
going into something
trying to have
else.
a conversation?
true, but that is true. What's the name? Hulky?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
I mean, as 100% that is true, but then you're looking at where he then decides to step out of line or go against the Constitution, then what's the recourse? Because what Jude is saying is 100% correct. But then when the court says you're not fit, then that has to come from his cabinet or the legislative. But if he controls the legislative and then his cabinet is all loyal because at least two of the cabinet members serve time for this man. So who's going to stand up and say, "Hey, he's not fit"?
Well, that's why you have the courts. Let's say if the president decide to violate every law, violate his oath of office and all whatnot, and a case was brought to the court. Forget about the Congress now. Let's say he has all the Congress in his pocket. A case was brought against the court. The
Correct.
the district court the lower court will rule that yes, the president has violated his oath of office and that he's unfit and yada yada yada. He will appeal. He go to the
Except
appeal
that he
appeal
can't be
board.
prosecuted for anything that he did while he's in
Hold on,
office.
hold on now.
Keep going in the same circle.
What courts is he talking about, Sir
What
Hold
court are
Jude?
you
on.
talking about?
Are you listening or you just want to talk? I
Sir
don't.
Jude,
You
somebody has
asked me a
been playing
question. I'm
by
No,
trying
but
to
you
explain to
keep
you.
running to something that we already covered. That is
What have you covered?
but put it away, Sir Jude. Here's what we're telling you right now. We're telling you, no matter what, the courts have no power over this man. The
right.
courts have no
Why
power
is
over
he
this man.
president?
They have no enforcement mechanism. They
The
have
court?
to rely on the executive branch, which he controls, to enforce any ruling. So they have
No,
power over this man at this point in time. So,
no. It doesn't work like that. That's what you think.
so is
That's
he
the way
following
we've been
any
looking
court
at it.
orders right now? Is there any court orders that he's following, or has he violated all the court
Okay.
orders?
Let me explain something to you. Okay, because that issue has not been presented. Okay, if Donald Trump,
It
co-
has been presented.
why are you not letting me talk,
They told him to turn the plane around, Sir Jude, and he didn't do it.
dude? But he's doing it. He's bringing the guy back, right? They ordered him, and the case went to the. If it's
They
not,
want
if no, if you think that he's aware to violate the court order, why did he take the case to Supreme Court to appeal? I don't understand why we even having this argument.
To
If he
appease
thinks that he's
everybody.
bad and he's big and bad, why did he have to go to Supreme
to
Court
He
Jude.
didn't
to
have
appeal?
to. He's just appeasing
So
them.
Jude, I mean, he playing games with him. He's not going to listen to him anyway. You remember the plane full of people that he had sent over to El Salvador? And then they told him, no, you need to bring the plane back because we don't know who all you sent over there. Did he ever bring the plane back? Or did they keep going to them people in prison right now?
Of course, the Supreme Court ruled on the case.
So the Supreme Court ruled on the first case where the Supreme Court said yes, he had the right to send the plane. So then that throwed off the first judge, the district court judge. But then and the second case with the young man, the Supreme Court ruled that he had to show steps on bringing the guy back to the U.S.
Oh my God, guy.
So, I mean, that's null and void. But then at the end of the day, it is what's going to happen from a result from a conversation that out of the blue, oh, I'm going to bomb the Houthis out of this world, and then you need to come and talk to me about this nuclear plant that you're trying to put up.
So I saw the press meeting that he gave, right? The message is very clear. If the diplomacy failed with Iran on the nuclear program, it is not going to look good. How else?
Exactly.
Yeah, so the communication is very clear. So somebody who insists on having the nuclear weapon, despite they're not supposed to be having it, how do you want to deal with this person? Right? I mean, like, so do you want to like babysit and wait for Iran to do something and then take an action? So what's your point? Like, so he acting swiftly and taking or acting proactively to before Iran could do anything devastating. He's trying to do something to curb that they're not in a position to do something that could then later on we will have a problem, right? So why do we have a problem with that is what I'm trying to understand in this room.
let me let you in on a secret. Iran's already got a bomb.
I don't think
I
so.
definitely believe that.
I don't believe that.
I mean, I don't,
No,
whether that's factual or
I
not.
don't believe it. If
You should
I
work on that
mean,
assumption. It would be
Whenever
foolish not to work on that
they
estimate.
talking like this and they this serious, and they haven't gone into Iran and have
mm,
actually done what they needed to do, they
nobody
got
knows whether they have it for
Because
sure.
because
Even the local citizens
oh,
don't know whether they have it or not.
they
because
Even
not
the
the
gonna
people who
nuclear
live there
plants.
don't know. Yeah, there's a nuclear plan, yes, but they don't have nuclear weapons. Those are two separate things.
Okay, so is the nuclear plant enriching um, uranium? Is it running? The plant is running.
Okay,
Yes, it's
so
running.
it
They
is
have
running,
enriched uranium.
Okay. So
and the
let's say
fact
enriching is
back during Obama time,
uh
they shipped what 220 tons of uranium. That country sits on a massive deposit of uranium. That is true. That's fact. I mean, they can supply uranium for the rest of the world. They have so much uranium deposits in that country. And
Okay.
that's the only thing that's keeping their economy alive. They're completely forbidden to trade with any country in the world. So their only country they're trading with is Russia, China, and India. They don't have any other trades going on with any country. And today, one US dollar is almost like 28,000 tomans.
Uh,
That's how bad it is over there, right? So they're able to depend on their own stuff because they do have natural resources, something like this that could be very valuable, both at a point like where you could use it destructively or you could use it constructively for, power, source of energy, right? But nobody knows, even the locals don't know whether they have a nuclear weapon or not.
so do me if you do this favor, Google this. Does Iran has a nuclear weapons? The first thing that pops up, and let me read the face of the article. Israel would be leading a strike on Iran if Iran doesn't give up nuclear weapons program. Trump warns.
Yes. And he said that in the press meeting. Yeah, I know that. But
so
we
when you look
don't.
like y'all
So
remember
that is
when I
going under an assumption that they have, right? That is going under an assumption that they have, right?
y'all don't remember that interview Ahmadinejad had when he was over here and he was shown the map and he was surprised at the fact that we had already known exactly where they were actually enhancing this uranium at because he thought that it was a secret. That let
Mm.
me know right then and there that their nuclear weapons program was far more advanced than what we had thought it was. And I firmly believe, this is my belief, that they already have a bomb and they just playing this type of game with the world. And that's why we're treating them with kid gloves. Because really, if we really wanted Iran to stop its program, we'd have gone in there like we do every other nation. We'd have gone in there and we'd have actually taken all this nuclear uranium and all the stuff like that and stopped them from being able to enrich it. But we have not gone
Nah,
in.
nah,
We have
that's
not
not
gone in because
accurate.
we know.
Iran is backed up by China and Russia. You touch Iran, these two countries will sit on your and whoop your ass. So that's the reason why we cannot touch Iran right now. It's not because we can't do anything to Iran. It's because we had to go head on head with Russia and China. And I don't think US can do that because they're not that powerful.
Hokey.
Do you know who we talking about?
I don't think.
Do you
I'm
know who
talking
you
about
talking about?
Do you
Iran.
understand what just happened
USA.
over the week in the last couple of days?
Do you
This place called, and this is the news I got on April 7th. Six bombers, stealth bombers, went to a place called Diego, something Diego. It's a island just outside of.
Garcia?
Say it again.
You talking about Diego Garcia?
Yes, Diego Garcia.
Yeah, that's what
Instead
I thought.
and instead of parking in the shelters that nobody could see them, they park them on the runaway. So if you have a satellite and you look at that plane, the runaway, you see six planes lined up. So what does that tell you? That Trump ain't playing. He's serious. So now you're seeing the articles that, and as people saying, "Oh, Israel is here for tariff." Wasn't here for no tariffs. I ain't that stupid because Israel have a surplus with us, and tomorrow is Saturday. So let's see what they're talking about. Well, today is Saturday. Well, yeah, tomorrow is Saturday. Let's see what they're talking
Nothing will
about.
happen on Saturday. It's Sabbath. Israel doesn't do anything on Saturday.
Well, they're gonna
So
have a conversation with Iran on Saturday.
yeah, but in Israel they won't. But yeah,
Well, they're gonna be in
But
Iran on Saturday.
listen, I said 2 days ago that in 2 weeks we're going to be in war. So it's coming, you guys. April 20th and April 21st. People are saying we're going to be in lockdown. So it's coming, you guys.
Why
Who's gonna
April
who's
20th?
gonna be on lockdown? We're gonna be on lockdown, Dr. Hope?
Well, some people are saying that. It
Yeah,
will,
Damn.
it will only be for a couple days. Like the crisis won't, something's coming, all right?
Oh
It's
my
coming
gosh.
down the pike.
I just
And I'm
had
not fucking fear monitoring because I saw 9/11 3 days before it happened. I was in the UN. I called MSNBC and Time. I'm not fear monitoring, so fuck you.
Tell us
Good
about that.
night.
Oh, what happened with MSNBC?
I went ahead and invited everyone up from the goo. I think I might be the only moderator in here still, but yeah, real quick to actually speak on that 20th date, folks. In the executive order that he signed on January 20th, on President Trump's first day in office, if you read, what was it? I think it's like section 6, subsection B, and this is on the order for southern border. He says that in 90 days he expects uh, a written confirmation or a written opinion from the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense on implementing martial law in the United States uh, to address the fentanyl crisis and cartels that he's now classified as terrorist gangs. So that's where that April 20th number comes from, folks. Is that 20 days, or then sorry, the 90 days after the January 20th executive order was signed, and the Insurrection Act, could go into effect, and American troops could be deployed on U.S. soil.
Oh, really? Okay. Thanks for the. Okay.
Man, why y'all run Dr. Hope off?
She good. Doctor Who good.
Uh, I wasn't running her off. I was just stating that fear that people are repeating. That's actually where it comes from. It's from that executive order.
Well, is Doctor Hope is the first person I heard said it last night. When myself and Sir Jude was talking, and she is last night or the night before, and she just jumped in and she just said it out loud, and then she disappeared. I'm like, okay, and then she comes, just see, she jumped in again, say it out loud, and disappear. So that's why I asked, wait, word, you said it last night. So this April 20th? Like, what is that day all about?
Yeah, it sure as hell doesn't make any sense if you just yell it out and you don't freaking explain it, right?
I
You
know, right?
gotta learn to just let them flow, Skull. That's why she cussed you out.
Is it?
Yeah, you gotta let her give us the information. Sometimes you'll find a gem in there somewhere.
Well,
See,
she
y'all want
started.
her to get like a professor, you know what I'm saying, and put y'all in college class and all that. Let her just get her crazy out so we can break it down. Now, if you don't understand, then we'll give you the cliff notes to it.
It's like what it was
Want
last
everybody
night.
educated, you know what I mean? Damn, let everybody just talk the way they talk. Dr. Hope gets up here and spouts conspiracy, and I love her for it because she's speaking half my language. And so the thing about it is that let her get it all out, but y'all be trying to cut her down, don't want to hear from her and all that, man. That one probably have a whole bunch of knowledge, and you better wake up. 9/11 did happen. We can't act like it didn't happen.
True, you're right.
You guys, she calls me about 5 times a day. I don't want to keep talking because she comes back in the room. But
That
it's some interesting conversations, y'all.
What's up, Sheree?
that
No,
is quite interesting. But here's the subsection that I cited. It's section 6, subsection B, and I posted the actual subsection there, and I've also posted the link to the actual executive order directly on the White House's website. So yeah, there it is.
Okay, I'll take my time and read this in a few. But in Skull, do you see the markets that the futures are running positive?
Well, yeah, yeah. China's down, right? I mean,
Hmm.
China's
Japan
China's
down. Japan
China's
and
currency's down. China's markets are down. Xi's saying he's trying to go on a tour to get allies. You know, that's they're starting to get concerned. But I still think we're months away from a resolution. I could be wrong, but I don't think China's going to bend the knee that easy.
yeah, I mean, after the first round, 48 years ago, I think he prepared himself for today, for this time around when if Trump wins again. So that's why he can hold out this long. Um, but then let's see what happens. And I think the world is going to buckle if Trump do something stupid with Iran. If Trump reacts to Iran, the world is going to say, you know what? Let me take this guy seriously.
And Sir Jude on left too and went to sleep.
Awesome,
Yeah, yeah, man, come on.
I'm
I
heading
like
out as well. See y'all later.
man. See you tomorrow or later in the day. The market's looking good.
did Grant and them cut up tonight? Or no, were they on their best behavior?
So and that's the things with the MAGA crowd. When markets are red, they pretty much lap their tails. When market is green, they got the most and the loudest voices. So that's pretty much how the room runs. So I'm here reading this thing. So it says, "No, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump of the United States of America, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 2, 201, and 301 of the National Emergency Act, 50 USC 1601, hereby declare national emergency exist." My goodness. What national emergency are we in? Like, seriously. This man is something else. But he just dropped $1 trillion in the Defense Department. 1 trillion. God damn.
Who's that yawning?
You
I'm
should,
sorry, that was me. I fell, I fell asleep and I just woke up. I don't know how I got that way.
You trying to say
Sorry.
we born, huh?
but I'm also wondering how are they going to explain the cutting of their Social Security and Medicare to their people?
I mean, what are they cutting? They cutting the dollars or what?
Benefits, cutting dollars, 51 million. They're cutting a lot of money out of it. It's 51 million or 51 billion. Some ridiculous amount of money they're cutting out of Social Security and Medicare. And the reasoning for it is Trump said he don't want nobody that is any young man sitting at home playing video games on Medicaid, Medicare. I'm done. Say, okay, Trump. So any man home video games, they can't get Medicaid unless you're sick. And he's adding a work feature to it. They added a work feature to it. So if you're a single mom, you have to be able to can work some hours.
Oh, that sounds like that welfare to work nonsense that Bill Clinton had at one time.
Well, okay, something like that. So they added a work component to it.
They tired of y'all sitting at home getting this free money. That's what they saying. They don't care. They don't care if you work toward and you retire and get no. Your ass still got to work. You know, tired of that.
Oh shit! Yeah, man. Donald Trump. I'm telling you.
Um, I wanted to say that I think kind of the saddest thing is that they're kind of fear mongering the older folks who are on Social Security, and they're not cutting that. I've been dealing with Social Security for 9 months, and they're not doing all that. So
Then
I don't
then
know
I
about
okay.
Jotham. I don't know about what you're talking about. I'll be honest with you. I haven't read anything about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have a lot of my friends calling me because they know I've really had to. I haven't had to battle them. It's just that they just didn't care, and there was really a lot of bad customer service, and people didn't know anything, and they just. I saw people. They tried to arrest people, and there was just. It was a madhouse, honestly, and I felt like they were really disrespectful to people. So a lot of my friends call me, and they're, you know, getting ready to get their Social Security and stuff, and they're a little bit afraid. But I just don't feel like that part, is going to be affected. Now, what I do think is they've always said that it's going to end by supposedly 2035. And
Yes.
my thought process on that is then why would you still be taking out money out of people like my son's age and, any of us who have kids or whatever who are working? Why would you, or anybody, not kids, just people that
Okay.
supposedly it's not going to be there for? It's like, why would you just keep taking the money out? Because it's not a welfare program when you've worked for it and you get your Social Security retirement. So I don't know.
So the reason why it's going to be basically run out of money by 2035 is the fact that is not enough contributors to it currently. The population is stagnant. Not enough young people having kids. And if you notice, even China is doing it too. China, Japan, all them Asian countries, they are inviting men to come over and have kids with their females. And the way that the last administration chose to go was to open the borders. More people come in, more people work. They pay taxes by buying food and stuff like that, and more money will then pour into the social security system. So that will then extend the time.
Where is
That
this thing you said last night? They voted on it.
That's the
Where is that at?
point.
say again.
You said they voted on something last night. Where is that at?
It's called the budget and means. The House passed the means of for Medicaid, Medicare to the budget that just put in the means, budget and means, and you'll see it come up. So that's how the social security that the claim running out of money. So because we're not having enough kids, so by time the gap So there's now a big gap of, let's say, 21 year olds versus the younger generation of, let's say, 10-year olds. There's a big gap there because in people are not having enough babies to fill that gap. So, and more people are retiring from the baby boomers. So then you have even bigger gap at the top, and they want to fill
So
that gap.
so Jonathan, you believe that this is why we open the borders, or you're telling, or you think this is exactly, or this is you're stating that more as a fact, or are you
Yeah,
stating that this is what you believe?
that's a fact. They open the borders to fill the need of um, more people working, more people paying taxes. That's one of the reasons why they opened the borders. They weren't vetting who was coming in. They just opened the borders.
So yeah, so essentially compromising the integrity of the vote, and then eventually, now we have to sit in a place like where we have to question if our election is even fair or unfair, right? So do you think that's a great thing to do? I mean,
So
like, seriously, Jotun?
okay, no, you're changing
No, I
the
mean,
from.
like, so you're bringing in adults, right? So,
Mhm.
and then how do you expect these adults to just, you know, come out of thin
So
air, right?
if you're not a citizen, you can't vote.
Yeah, but that's not what is happening, though. That's not what happened, and that's why a lot of people were
What do you
frustrated about it.
what are you talking about? That's what happened. You can't vote in a
No, that's the law. But do you think that's what is happening, though? That's not what happened.
okay,
That's why people started like getting frustrated because God knows who's sitting on the welfare fund and taking advantage of the system. God
okay,
knows who's having the right to vote or who's not supposed to have the right to vote in the first place, but are
okay.
actually voting in our system. We don't have a record of accurate information about the people that will come in. So that's why he's trying to fix all these things. And the SAVE Act that was passed today is to, to provide the proof of citizenship or with a birth certificate or a passport or something like that.
Understand.
So we're trying to get those integrity things into the system so we make sure that all these things are accurate so that people who can vote can actually vote, right?
Understand, correct. And if you notice, he also said today, and he's going to sign something on that also, a EO on that also, stating that if you are a construction worker or a farm worker, you can stay. Yeah, he spoke about that today, and claiming he's going to do a EO on that to have an exception for farm and construction workers.
Now, Jonathan, there's an issue because what I'm reading is they're basically uh, giving a particular committee over 10 years to cut the federal deficit by 880 billion.
Mm-hmm.
It tells the it tells the agriculture committee to order to cut 230 billion. That's over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So 80 billion and everything is not like directly, and it doesn't really name Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay, so the program the document I have here, and I could play Johnson. He's right in front of me. I can play so you could hear him 42 seconds of him. But then the document also I have here that says it passed the budget framework this week that states a sweeping spending reduction across a range of federal programs. Right, the framework has raised alarms among public health and anti-poverty advocates and potentially cuts Medicare and supplementing new like SNAP and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's where the money is coming from.
It
Because
said potentially, but it doesn't say that they're necessarily going to cut it.
okay, so let me play Mr. The Mr. Johnson for you, so you could understand where it's coming from. It wasn't me; it was him who said it. He said it out loud. Okay, let me turn this up. Budget resolution, so we can move forward on President Trump's very important agenda for the American people. Uh, this process has required a lot of close consultation between the White House and the Senate. And all of that has been necessary because we want to make sure that we are delivering on our shared goals in the budget reconciliation process. Our big, beautiful bill has to reflect all of that. And so it is big, and it involves a lot of
areas of policy, and so it requires a lot of close coordination. Our two chambers are directly aligned also on a very important principle, and that is the principle of fiscal responsibility. We are the party that delivers and ensures that.
That wasn't the part I was looking for. Give me 1 second there. Where he was talking about we are not going to have anybody, any man sitting in coaches. We want to get rid of that. So he says a combined reduction of Medicare and SNAP could total more than 1.1 trillion over the next decade. So that's the cut they're assuming that is going to go after, right? And it starts in 2026. So 1 million, leading to the loss of 1 million jobs and about 113 billion to hit the state economies by 2026. So once this goes through the Senate, and this is what the Senate did last night. The Senate refused to run it through last night because this was Wednesday night, because the Senate wanted every Republican to put their signatures in it. And this is the conservative GOPs wanted every Republican to put their signatures in it because that's what they ran on. Put your signature on it that this is what you want to do, and then we'll pass it.
Jonathan, the other thing is like, I remember you was telling that we don't have enough people paying into the system, so that's why by 2035 we are expecting to run out of funds. While that could be partially true or may not be true, but the actual reason is back when the system was designed in 1800s, like people didn't live longer, right? I mean, now with the
Hmm.
advancement of science and but and genetics and all that stuff, now people are living longer than
Correct.
and then that's
I think
I
Social
think
Security
I think that's the main reason why we're not able
didn't Social
to.
Security start the New Deal, not in the 1800s.
Sorry, what were you saying, Carlos? You were cutting out.
Social Security didn't that start with the New Deal?
The New Deal? It was a New Deal. Like,
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Social Security.
yeah, yeah, I'm referring to Social Security. I'm just referring to that.
You said you're
Well,
afraid.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you're saying, Carlos.
Yeah,
No, he.
I can barely hear him
Social
too.
Security- Did you say Social Security was put in place in the 1800s?
No, I'm talking about the life expectancy of people back in the early in 1800s and 1900s were different compared to what they are
Correct.
now.
Correct. Because yeah, I
So,
mean, after World War II, I mean, life expectancy was just about 55 years old because you come home from the war. Just after that, you're passing away, right? And then as medical got better, you start treating all the disease that the men came home with from the war, and then today in we were like just about 2 years ago we were at 67. 3 years before that we were 65 in terms of retirement age, and then now we are at 70. The latest you can retire is 72, right, to get your full benefits. So with that, they're just pushing the age back, and with pushing the age back because people are living longer, the pool of workers who are still at work is getting smaller because that let's call it repopulation gap in terms of people having kids to fill the. So you have the baby boomers, and then you have pretty much us, Generation X, and Generation Y, and then after that, the youngsters, within the youngins, is not much of them, right? And for who we have left, because they're killing each other left, right, and center, who we have left, they may not be even paying into the system because the majority of them stay home and play video games, right? So with that, that's what they're looking at.
Out there, y'all. You see a majority who playing video games.
Yeah, and that's what they're
It's
looking
my
at.
generation. They've been scamming us with this Social Security going bankrupt for the past 50 years. First,
Yeah,
it was
and
thank you. Yes, they've been saying this
in
forever.
2000, then it said 2010, then they said 2020. It's going to be bankrupt. Now it's 2035. It's going to be bankrupt.
yeah,
They've been scamming y'all for the longest. Same thing with the seeds. You know, we put on the coast. We supposed to have been underwater by now. I mean, they got y'all got to
You're
start
you're
calling for
right.
the.
You're right. You're right. I mean, and that's for a different thing. The you know, I'm no. I'll I'll buy me a house in the shore anytime. Um, because if it was for, listen, I'm not into that. You know, sky is falling and all them stuff, right? Um,
Order's supposed to have been underwater. And then, and to show you that the game has been played, what did President Obama go and buy him a piece of property at?
the water, yeah, that's
Y'all talk
and even with that, so for instance, yesterday, President Trump uh, EO'd relaxing, what do you call that thing, emissions and EPA standards. He relaxed these three, four of them, so that you can do more. Because I think California is the state to target in terms of changing the rest of the country. California have the strictest laws when it comes to automotive and just EPA laws. If you can relax California by getting rid of Gavin Newsom, replace him with somebody else, lower the taxes, and then work, because pretty much anything that goes through California runs through the rest of the country because they have more power than pretty much any other state in terms of the mega millionaires. What they say goes, right? So if you could level California in terms of changing it, just changing the governor, we lower the taxes, then you could spread it across the other states in terms of emissions. So a car that is bought in Texas cannot be sold in California. Why is that? It's two different emission systems, always coming from the same company. So if you buy a Toyota Corolla, there's two different Toyota Corollas. One in Texas is different from one in California. If you go to state right next to it, a car in Nevada is different from a car in California because of the emission systems, which is crazy. But
I can't tell about I can't tell about the cars. I can certainly tell about the guns because now they have to have a chamber indicator. They have to have a safe mag release and all that kind of bullshit. And and honestly, like how many manufacturers want to specifically design things only for California standards?
there
So
you go.
so what's happening is the people in California are starving and they can't get whatever they want. I mean, they're forced to just buy some stuff that's just made for us, and and there are very limited options, you know.
Yeah, and that's where you could say the governor needs to go. We need to,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I
Thank
can't
you
wait,
both for thinking that way. Thank
can't
you.
wait for him to just leave the office. He's just, and they spent $20 billion on homelessness and drug addiction and all that stuff, recovery and all programs, but they they have no account as to how they spend that $20 billion. It's
And
totally unaccounted. Like, and
yeah,
and the
I
problem
see.
is not even solved.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I mean, I listen to, if you listen to even people like Grant, Grant Cardone, he lost his home, but at the end of the day, it is rebuilding. Why is it taking so long to rebuild? You have to go through all these red tapes just to rebuild my home from a fire. Like seriously, even like two days after the fire, I want to go to my home. I want to see what's left. The fire is done. I want to go to my home. There's so many red tapes you have to go through just to get back to your home. Like seriously, Gavin. Like seriously, what are you doing to the people?
Do you remember when he met with Trump and Trump went out there and he said that all that nonsense was going to not be happening, and it is happening. So what happened to that?
There you go. So it's he needs to go. I don't care what nobody say. He needs to go. I mean,
No, the way people vote here, listen, we've tried to oust him twice. Nobody wants to do it. I don't understand why. But now there's people wanting him to become president. If anyone
no,
wants to know what a nightmare is like, let him be
no,
president.
no. I would prefer to what's his name, Kemp or DeSantis to be president versus who we have now. But can't change that now. But um, I would prefer Kemp or DeSantis to be president. Reason being, because I mean, I believe in balance, where you have a Democrat who'll pull it to the left, then you need a Republican to pull it back to the right. When you go back to Obama, you had 8 years of Obama, so Obama pulled it to the left way too far. Then Trump came and Trump dragged it to the right. Then you have uh, Biden, Biden Harris. For some reason, I think he tried to pull it off of the pendulum to the left. Some of the
And he did. And he did.
some of the craziest things that you could ever think about happened. Like seriously, where are we going? What are we trying to do? And then no, you have Trump. He just grabbed it and I can't even explain how he's moving now because nobody knows what he's doing. But I mean, the balance will always be there. It doesn't matter how you think people should vote. It's yin yang. That's just how I look at it. Balance will always be there. Um, and if Trump doesn't straighten up, he's losing the Senate or the House midterms, and that's in 16 months. If he doesn't straighten up, if he cannot fix what we are going through in another couple of weeks, we are losing the Senate and the House because people vote with their pocketbooks, and my pocketbook ain't looking so good right now.
Well, I want to read more into this Social Security because I'm telling you, like, I'm the youngest of 10 and I got, you know, just siblings and people panicking about it. And I'm like, I just don't think what they're saying is true. I'm not saying it's not true. You said there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I'd have to read into it. But
Hmm.
I feel like if that's going to be the case, what would affect the people that are already getting Social Security, the 65 plus people, is that they can always get more for Medicare, right? Because
Hmm.
Medicare does go up, so they say. I don't know. I'm not old enough for that. Mine was more of a disability issue, but um, uh, so they can get them there, and that's the scary part. But I just feel like there's a lot of fear mongering going on, and a lot of older
Yes,
people that I know. It's making me kind of sad, and
correct.
I haven't put the energy to read more into it.
There will be fear mongering. It doesn't matter in any areas that you think of. Because even with what's happening currently with the market, you'll still have people that says, "Oh, the world is coming to an end. This is happening. That is happening." I mean, no, the world will not come to an end because of the market's turbulence. But then at the end of the day, you look at the person in the office and you're like, okay, at least tell us what direction you're going. But at the same time, he ain't saying nothing. And then you find
Yeah,
out
we're
he. Go ahead.
we're just definitely in different times. That's for sure.
Sure.
Um, I know you can't really say a lot, not you per se, but the president and all that. But to me, they're saying too much of nothing. And I think it's better to kind of just hold back, do what you're doing, get things done, focus, do it, you know, maybe differently, or I don't know. Don't I'll tell you what, if that was my dad, I surely wouldn't want him to have to retract on things. I'd be like, oh, hell no. Like, you're not going to be looking crazy like that. But I don't know. I was taking it personal, I guess.
Hmm. Sometimes you got to take emotions out of it. And I think that's what Trump is doing. He left his emotions at home. And he's ripping true.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell you what, my Social Security office experience was mind blowing. And I felt like the way they treated some people, I mean, they were going to arrest this guy, and the lady behind the desk was just basically like flexing her power. All the guy wanted to know was why was his check less? And she
Hmm.
just didn't want to give him the answer. I mean, I could hear the whole conversation. I was sitting right there. And then she just lost it. And then she just started threatening him and saying, we're going to arrest you, and the security game. And they ended up kicking the guy out. And I was like, wow, that's, you know.
That's too
And
much.
I
Just
wrote a letter. I wrote a letter because I said that I witnessed the whole thing. And if your people can't handle the front desk, then you need to find someone who can, because that man didn't do. I wrote down the time and everything. So, not that I'm going to make a difference, but to me, it was a very abusive office. And maybe it's just the office that I was in, but it was a very abusive situation.
hmm.
Oh, and you walk into any DMV in San Francisco Bay Area, you get the same shitty treatment. They treat you like garbage, you know? It's like, go sit over there, do this, do that. Don't you understand English? This is the way they talk. I mean,
I think that's across the board. That's across the
Yeah.
board. 'Cause I,
Last last time I went in there, they wanted me to go do everything on the computer, and I said no, I can't. And she goes, why can't you? And I said, because I just can't. I don't know how to do all that. I'm not going to do it. And then she eventually ended up doing it for me, but I just said, I'm sorry. I said, they're just trying to take your job away from you. And so I'm just trying to save your job. I said, this is your job to do. It's not mine. You're getting paid to do this, not me. I said, I've already paid for these services with my taxes. So, it's where we're going. It's going to be worse, and there's going to be less people without jobs. So I don't know why they're worrying about the Social Security and populating the people if there's not going to be any jobs.
so it's like that's one of the things. What's his name? Sir, what's his name again? The African gentleman that was talking earlier, Sir
Sir
Jude.
Jude, yeah.
Yeah, was talking about. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't see much of a jobs coming back to America because when you have, for instance, a weekly pay in the Philippines is $6,000, but in that $6,000 in America is only $60 US. So then, if I was to bring that same job back to the US, who here will work for $60 a week?
I mean, I don't think it's going to move completely here. I think the
Okay.
operations are going to be more like 40-60 or something like that. At least to promote some economy, local economy here, and improve job opportunities and where people can actually work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the corporates have to make some profits, so they're not going to pay $60, or they're not going to pay $25 minimum wage. On top of that, they're not going to absorb all the tariffs, right? So they still have to have some kind of a balance with their profit margins. So they're
Mm-hmm.
going to continue to make some quantity here, some quantity there. I think that would strike a more fair balance than just having all of them manufacture out of the country, right? I think and and that's a fair ask. If Trump is able to accomplish that, it's still a win in my opinion, right?
I don't think so. Bringing back manufacturing jobs, I do think with some of the EPA rules that he has pulled back, because what's the possibility you think that we can get back into mining for rare earth? Because we do have rare minerals here, but the plants are closed, the minings are closed. And then you ask, what's the possibility we're going to get back into mining?
Mining probably not, especially
Yeah.
with nuclear clean power. And now there are subcompact nuclear reactors that are that's the new buzz in the energy space, like where you can actually build subcompact nuclear reactors that could power grids to local regions versus a massive plant.
Hmm.
So there are different ways to to address energy concerns than completely relying on coal and solar, right?
Hmm.
So I don't see coal mining happening.
Well,
Um,
not just coal mining, but you're talking like
Absolutely. Hey, one real quick, guys. Hey, guys. Debate the news. Once again, I want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight. This concludes the bonus episode for this evening. Come join us tomorrow. Guys, if you guys haven't done so yet, download the Chatter Social app. You can get it either at the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And if you're here in the room right now, up top, you have links. You can download and follow the podcast from the links above the room. I want to say thank you. At this time, we're going to be ending the CH feed. Thank you.
thank you.
yeah. So, Hulky, based on the what do you call that? What were we just